Some folks may have noticed that our radio man's name is Sparks. Apart from the fact that cartoons and other animations tend to show big sparks or lightning bolts coming from an antenna to show it's working, Sparks was also the radio man on the Seaview in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Is this a subtle tribute to that show? I like to think so. Right now, he's a little puzzled.
I just can't figure what that ship's doing out there.
What's the problem, Sparks?
A surface ship steamed up to the east edge of Seamount an hour ago, and now it's sailing back and forth like a tractor plowing a field.
Has it occurred to you that maybe something along those lines is what he's doing?
Have you tried to contact the ship?
Half a dozen times, but no response. And it's not on a voyage plan, not the way it's moving.
Keep trying, Sparks.
This is Sealab calling CQ. Come in. CQ, come in.
I learned that kind of call in my CB radio days. CQ is an open call that basically means... So far, the answer appears to be no.
Paul, take a look over there.
What's causing that?
You're the oceanographer, you tell me.
Something's chewing up the bottom out there.
That's what it looks like.
Any of our divers working the current?
Nothing that would cause that mess. Better check it out, Paul.
Right away, Captain.
Let's see. We have an unidentified ship moving in a grid pattern, and something is chewing up the bottom and causing a silt storm. Maybe they should call Batman. I get the feeling they need a detective to show them how those two things might be related. Paul will lead the dive team of Ed, Hal, and Gale. They grab their scooters and head out. It won't take long to find the source of the mess.
An undersea dredge. Someone's mining nodules with that thing.
And chewing up the bottom.
It will kill every living thing in the water if we don't stop it. That mining machine has to be shut down or we'll be out of business.
It's sure causing one big mess.
Let's move in closer.
Took you long enough. I thought they were going to just sit there and talk about it all day. They noticed that a camera is on top of it, so Hal gets up to it and gives it a thumbs down. Surprisingly, the machine stops.
They've got a message on that slate.
It says, "You are in the way. Move."
Just who do they think they are, anyway?
Easy, Hal, easy. I have an answer for them.
I have a few words if you run out, Dr. Williams.
No mining allowed. Buzz off.
Love the diplomatic scientific language. The whole Seamount area is a marine preserve. That means you can't even fish here, much less do massive destructive mining. Those guys are using a slate because they don't have comm gear in their masks. They show the slate to the camera and the dredge starts up again. I guess that's their answer.
Any luck yet, Sparks?
They're answering this time. Here comes the picture, Dr. Williams. This is Sealab to Dredge. Dr. Williams would like to talk to you.
Dr. Williams?
Yep. And you?
Samuel H. Carlson. And that's my dredge your people have been interfering with. Now, what is it you want?
Your dredge, Mr. Carlson, is causing havoc down here. Don't you know this is a marine preserve?
By what authority?
International Ocean Agency, the IOA.
Ah, a lot of scientists have signed a piece of paper. Doesn't mean a thing.
This is about money. Don't you know that's more important? He's a major selfish jerk. He doesn't care what he kills. This spot has the best mineral nodule deposit, so he'll dredge here. Sparks fires off a message to the IOA, and they say they'll send a team right away. To do what hasn't been specified, but they also say they need evidence of what it's doing, because Paul's word isn't good enough. Great working relationship you got there. Meanwhile, if they don't stop that thing, soon this whole region will be a dead zone. I've seen a dead zone. There are no words to describe how heartbreaking it is to know that once this place thrived with life, and thanks to humans, it's all gone.
Just tell your people to stay clear of my dredge and we'll all get along just fine. That's my final word.
He's all excited because his machine is completely automated. He doesn't have to do anything but push the start button and watch the money roll in. Hal, Ed, and Gale head out in Deep Diver to get some videotape of this thing.
Ed, you and Gale lock out with the cameras. I'll keep deep diver ready to go, just in case.
Let's go, Ed.
All set.
Before someone asks, no, I don't know why they can't just film it through the windshield. In the course of getting what they need, they'll swim in front of that camera. Carlson can see what they're doing and he doesn't like it. Which means he knows he shouldn't be there and doesn't want video evidence at his trial.
Reverse the pumps.
Yes, sir.
We're being blasted away.
And yet you're not moving. Paul needs to do a research paper on the physics of that. Ed thinks if they can get Carlson down here and show him the damage he's doing, he'll change his mind. He has a lot more faith in Carlson than I do. Carlson has the dredge following them, and Ed has an idea for taking advantage of that.
I think it's being drawn in now.
I see. Okay, let's film.
Derelict nets are a big problem on the ocean floor. Nobody's sure how many there are because nobody can count that high. Fish and other creatures get tangled by the hundreds and starve, and it's a major conservation issue. They buried that one under those rocks some time back, which is about the best thing you can do with them. Most of them have been down there long enough that they're starting to deteriorate, and if you grab one and try to bring it up, you end up with many pieces of net drifting every which way and making things worse than they were before. Burying it and letting it decompose there is the best alternative we've found. But they do come in handy when you're trying to foul a destructive machine.
Completely jammed. Have the divers ready to go in 5 minutes. And get my computer lung with communication gear.
He and his two divers will go down and try to unfoul it.
Is that you, Carlson?
Yes, now leave us and stop interfering.
Good. You have talk gear, and I'd like to talk to you. Look at this. Octopus eggs. This was a sea urchin. It eats the algae on the coral you've just wiped out.
Who cares about a few urchins?
Besides urchins, that coral was a home for countless marine creatures.
Hal, you might as well be talking to the dredge. I don't know what made them think this would have any effect on him. All he can see are dollar signs. He chases them away again and raises the dredge off the sea floor to try and get the rest of it untangled.
Hal, something's wrong. The dredge, it's falling.
What happened?
Divers, help!
Carlson's trapped underneath.
We're going out to help.
He feels like he broke some ribs, but he's conscious and he can breathe okay. At least as long as his air holds out. They need to get him free before that becomes a problem. Using deep diver's claws, they lift the dredge enough for Carlson to slip out. But he needs a doctor. Fortunately, we know where to find one.
You're lucky. The x-ray showed only a fractured rib.
I should thank you. But if those kids hadn't interfered...
Why am I waiting for him to say, I would have gotten away with it if not for you meddling kids?
And saved your life.
For that, I'll thank them. Now, if I can have my diving gear, I'll return to my ship.
Not until you're decompressed.
Listen, Doc. I'm going now.
You'll get the bends if you surface without decompression. You'll need 3 hours in our chamber.
3 hours? I never needed that.
You're getting older. Come on, the sooner you start, the sooner you're out.
While he's in there, they'll force him to watch the film they shot of his dredge destroying the underwater world. As if that's going to affect him. I think they've been down here too long. They've forgotten what greed is like.
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Mr. Carlson, today we know that the sea is as fragile as land. It's important for you to know that. And if the seas die, the land will be next.
That's just your theory. Now you listen. Show me how I can keep my dredge working and still save your precious ocean bottom. Then maybe we can work something out.
The solution is ridiculously simple. Keep the dredge off the bottom. It doesn't have to make contact to vacuum up those mineral nodules he's after. Wait, He built this whole thing from scratch and he didn't know that? I could have told him and saved him all that fuss. Before I started making videos, I thought my life had been pretty dull and average. It wasn't until I began to tell stories to illustrate things like this that I realized my life has been absolutely nuts. When I get to thinking about all the things I've done and experienced that I didn't understand at the time, my own mind gets a little boggled. I bring that up because I have to say I've done underwater dredging. I had honestly forgotten about it until this story came up. In the late 60s, personal underwater dredges became a thing, and of course my dad bought one. We went to a nice big stream up in the Sierras somewhere, set things up, and started dredging. I got to be the guy in the water. The rig we were using rode on a floating platform similar to this one. I was in a thick wetsuit with a hood and a full face mask that included the connection to a compressor on the surface. It supplied me with a steady flow of air. In diving, we call that a hookah, but that's not important. What was important was I held the end of the dredge hose a couple of inches above the sand and gravel on the bottom, so the suction would mainly pick up the sand and not the gravel. The stuff it picks up goes into here. This thing is called a sluice box. As the sand and such flows over it, the gold is the heaviest thing there, so it sinks to the bottom. The box has barriers called riffles in it, and the heavy stuff like gold gets trapped behind them. Just about any kind of mining that uses water ends up with one of these things. I learned to hate those things because they're so inefficient it borders on being dumb. They don't collect heavy gold and such, they collect everything. Sand, rocks, bottle caps, toys, you name it, it'll get stuck on one of the riffles. Oh, if there are any gold flecks in the sand, they'll be there too, but good luck seeing them. If you've ever tried panning for gold, that's the last step in this process. You take all the fancy dirt that box has collected, put it into a gold pan, and get to work. When we got done with all that, we always ended up with a pill bottle containing a few tiny bits that looked like flaked off gold leaf. They were always in with a buttload of iron filings, what we used to call black sand, because that stuff is almost as heavy as the gold. There was never enough to make any money from, and all through my childhood I wondered why we worked so hard for a prescription bottle of nothing.
Run your tape back a few minutes. Watch, Mr. Carlson. See how your dredge moves along the bottom, just crashing along?
So? What are you getting at?
Now watch closely. You may have automated underwater mining, but you haven't perfected it. The sea life is disturbed. Don't you see? You're over-automated. You're not in control.
He says put men down there to guide it to the best spots instead of just destroying everything willy-nilly.
Putting men down there? It won't work.
We're down here.
My computers don't have to be fed, and they don't get tired. They work continually if I want.
He's not saying his main reason. He doesn't have to pay a computer.
But they still don't have hands and the brain of man. Give us 24 hours to de-automate that dredge, and we'll show you how to mine underwater without being destructive.
It's a big job. It involves disconnecting all the computer stuff and adding controls, plus a cabin for the operator. Carlson isn't helping.
What's that supposed to be?
It's the manual control. This motion turns the dredge, and this one raises it.
Like an aircraft control,
Right at your fingertips.
You've got 2 hours. This had better work.
It's easy to see he doesn't want it to, but at least he's not actively trying to sabotage it. He's just being a nuisance distraction. Naturally, they run into a couple of hiccups, and Carlson loves it.
1 hour left, young man, or you redo my equipment.
When did we make that deal? We said we'd de-automate it. Nobody said a word about putting it back, so if this doesn't work, you're on your own, dude. But it does work.
We're in business.
Look out, nodules, here we come.
I wish it worked like that. Even when you do it right, you still end up with all kinds of extraneous material that you have to send back into the water. That's what's happening here. The extra sand, silt, and other stuff is pouring back into the stream. Since this is moving water and there's almost no mud, things clear up quickly. That ocean floor is made up almost entirely of mud and silt. Even doing it like this is going to leave a big cloud behind because the mud weighs less than the nodules. If the dredge I was using had worked like this and produced actual usable mineral, I might still be doing it. As it was, we used that thing for maybe 2 weeks before my dad realized it was pointless and sold the whole rig. I was a little bummed. Operating the dredge hose was boring, but getting to play with the fish was fun.
Do you think those young people of yours would help train some of my men?
You'll have plenty of time to ask them from our recompression chamber. It'll take a good 5 hours before we can send you out.
Oh, no, not again.
He also apparently doesn't understand how the human body works underwater. He was ready to charge back up before, and if he had, he'd be something we don't say on this show, dead. Decompression sickness, commonly known as the bends, has killed a lot of people. Deep divers, the kind who go explore things like the Andrea Doria, hang air tanks at various points on their descent lines because they know they'll need to stop at that point on the way up, possibly for an hour or so, to get the nitrogen out of their bloodstreams. I've never tried any of that, but I've talked to many people who have. I know a couple of guys who have a little magnetic chess set that they take with them so they can play while they're hanging there. Another person I know takes his iPhone in a waterproof plastic bag. Anything to ease the boredom of just sitting there. I get the feeling Carlson didn't do any research at all about the ocean before he built this thing and went charging off to make his fortune. Gale promises no more home movies this time, which means he gets to be bored for 5 hours. He may have had a change of heart about his dredge, but even so, I doubt anybody wants to play chess with him. Is this a subtle to know that the